the next step in the process will be to clean up the push rod, and we'll just try to add some cross hatching onto that with some Scotch-Brite so that our grease will seep into that, so when it passes through our bushing here, it's not going to scratch up the inside until it gets seated in. So it's just simple. We'll place that into our drill press. Approximately a 1/4 inch past our threads, because that cylinder actually only travels maybe a third of this distance here in the center, so it won't make a lot of difference whether we actually catch this last bit or not. Use a piece of our gray Scotch-Brite. Just pinch around and work it the length of the shaft a few times until we can see all the contaminants are gone. And that'll give us a nice cross-hatched surface for our grease to seep to. So we can pass him back through our end cap, place our stop back on, which if there's any contaminant on that, you can wipe that off. It's made of nylon, so it cleans up really easy. And then what's left is just our piston, which we can take a Scotch-Brite pad and just slightly clean up any of the corrosion that may be on that. And then also check it and make sure that there's not any nicks or high points in the piston itself from when we used our vise with the nylon shoes to take that apart. So there shouldn't be, but better safe to check.
If there are, then what would you do? You'd have to replace it?
If there are any imperfections on the surface of the piston, simply just take some 1000 grit or some 800 grit and you can work that. So we'll just take it and work it back and forth. That's a 1/4 28 thread that is inside of that. So if you have an extra piece of threaded rod that's 1/4 28, you can use that. That's what we'll generally do to speed the process up, but you can also do it by hand. And it'll just allow me to turn it out a little quicker. I don't see any imperfections in this piston here, so we'll leave that be and then just do a slight little scuff on the end of it to get the contaminants off. Invert it. Do the same thing to the other side. And catch the trough in the middle where the O-ring sits. It doesn't have to be perfect, just clean enough so there's no old contaminants on there. So he'll be ready for reassembly on the end of our push rod then. So just guarantee that our push rod and our piston aren't going to come apart while in operation. We'll use the Loctite retaining compound 638 and just add a dab of that to our threads. And then we can make sure that we are seating the push rod back into the piston, into the side that's recessed for it. So you can seat that by hand, and then we'll put it in the vise to ensure that we're seated all the way. And what you have left from that point is just to add on your new piston seal and nylons here that we have supplied along with the servicing kit. Those are part number 3845-2. So to seat your new seal on your piston, just lay one side on like this, and then you can work it around with your thumbs the rest of the way. Then your nylons will go on as support to keep your seal from slipping side to side on it. So these have slight chamfers cut into them. They're cut on a 45. Can you see that, can you? So make sure when you lap them together on the piston that you fall in this orientation and not this way. You should have this when you're done. So you can set that assembly to the side and well, I guess we already filmed that, so then it'll be final assembly. You can take wire brush, and if you have any oxidation or corrosion or debris onto your threads there, you can clean that up real quickly so that we know we get a good seal when we put the two back together. That'll be acceptable there. So for final assembly, we will add some more of our synthetic grease. Use an applicator brush and add a liberal coat to our piston and new seal. And a light coat to our push rod so it will lubricate the bushing that it passes through. So as this passes through here, and then we'll also add slight coat of grease to the inside of our piston as our housing as well. And the two can go back together, being careful that when you seat the new ring and nylons into there that you don't get hung up on the threads on the way through. So make sure that the nylon likes to spread back open. Make sure that it stays pushed closed while you're seating it in there, and then a slight back and forth movement will get you where you need it to be, and then you can seat your cap back in. Cap should be finger tight to the body. Then we'll give it a slight double check with the crescent wrench to make sure it is seated all the way. And that'll be the completion of the rebuild for the cylinder. At this point, you can buff and polish your body to bring the luster back to it, along with the outside edges of the bearings, but ensure that you're not actually buffing the face of the bearings, or you'll contaminate the seals that sit in there. So keep your buffing just to the exterior of it and the body itself. If you buff the body, you need to make sure that you don't get contaminants down inside of the ports. If you do, you'll have to disassemble and clean out with hot soapy water the ports on either side, and along with the two cylinder on the inside and all the moving parts as well. So before you reapply your fittings back on, take a wire brush and clean off all the old sealant that was on them. And then you can also inspect your threads and make sure you don't have any broken threads or dented threads. Same thing on the fitting side where you'll have your ferrule. Make sure you don't have any burrs inside of there. This one looks good. So you can also buff and polish this while you've got it off if you like. Bring the luster back to it. And then for reassembly, seal our threads, we'll use Loctite 545, which is a thread sealant. And a slight application of that all the way around. And using our picture that we made earlier, we'll be able to make sure that we orientate our fittings back in the same direction that they were before. So we'll go finger tight, and then one full turn past finger tight to seat that. So picture illustrates that we'll be on this angle here. We'll do the same thing for the other one. and that'll give us a final product. So if we've done everything correctly, we should have good compression. If you were to block the port and pull out, you should have immediate return back in, which indicates that you've got a good seal. Same thing in the opposite direction. Seems as though we've got a new rebuilt cylinder, so short of a little buffing and polishing, that'll work to put back on the robot.